Hey everyone, welcome back to Real Builds the Basics and Project Off the Shelf. As you know, with this project we're trying to see how little we can spend to get this Geo Metro on the road, and we're using parts off the shelf that I have in the shop and trying to spend no money. So it's a challenging project. We'll do a total at the end, but right now we're sitting somewhere between, well, up until today we were at about $75 that we've spent so far, everything else coming off the shelf. Unfortunately today I had to buy some sheet metal and some additional materials, which adds about another $35 to the total. So that puts us at about $110 at this point, and hopefully we won't need to spend much more, but I have a hunch that ain't gonna happen. We'll have to throw a few more dollars at it. The other thing that I wanted to mention is, just because this is a Geo Metro doesn't mean it only applies to a Geo Metro. This will work with any car. If you put your mind to it and you've been wheeling and dealing and you've got a stockpile of parts and you need to put a driver together, you can do the same thing. Ford Focus, Chrysler Neon, Geo Metro, Toyota Corolla, doesn't matter. You can do the same thing. So, hope you learned something from the videos. Now, as you can see, the size of the pile of parts has greatly diminished at this point. That's because we've been putting sub-assemblies together. So the engine and transmission are together, the starter, the alternator are on, the intake manifold, the exhaust manifold, the ignition system. The power package is essentially ready to go in. Once it goes in, then the axles and struts go in, brakes go together, air cleaner goes on, we're in business. But we run into a couple of problems. And one is, as I mentioned before, we found some rust in the rad support. So let's take a look at what we got to deal with, because after a lot of soul searching, rather than get the engine in place and everything buttoned up, we're going to take care of the rad support rust first. It'll just be easier, simpler to do, and unlikely to damage any of our parts. So let's take a look at that rad support. So here you can see really well the problem we've run into. There's nothing worse for a car than sitting, and this really shows it. In normal use, what would happen is water would work its way into this tubular section. But because it was bouncing around and getting used and air was circulating, it'd either drain out the drain holes at either side, or just bouncing around, it'd keep itself in a aerosol state and work its way out. But sitting for all these years has allowed the water to pool and created some rust damage on both sides, as you can see. Now, this is structural, so there's no messing around. We need to fix it. So what we'll be doing is, we'll be creating patch panels that are 2 inches wide, 8 inches long, welding them, sealing them, then drilling a hole in so that they will drain better, and filling it full of protectant, painting it, and moving on to getting things installed. Now this is going to be a full day or two's work to make it happen, so it's a bit of a pain in the butt that we've got to stop the install to deal with it, but that's what we'll be doing for the next few days. Now, also a good chance to see the underside of the car. See how everything's neat and tidy now, buttoned up, ready to go together. All stuff that we've been wanting to do that we finally got to. Now we're going to have a cool little car when it's all done. The question is, I need to get this thing finished quickly and inexpensively. A few days ago I was laid off again. Not a good thing. Dries up the cash flow. And I need an econo box like this to probably commute to be able to get back to work. So, let's give us a sec to get back up on our feet. Here we go with another beauty shot of the parts left to go on. There's really not a lot left. Again, everything's been put into modules and is all set to go on, clean, neat, bolts ready to back it up. All the other components are ready to go. But that said, we have to deal with the rad support issue. Anything structural is absolute priority. And while there's other body work to do, that makes this pretty critical. I don't want to put an engine in if it's not structurally sound, so we're getting into the structurally sound. The car itself is a pretty good little piece, but we got some work to do. Now, the original idea of starting Real Builds was to show people anybody can build a car if you got a lot of money. It's building it when you don't have any, and I think that's what makes Project Off the Shelf special is I can't afford it. So we're building rather than buying because I had the bits and pieces here, and that's part of the hobby. You collect up parts for a project, you find them inexpensively, you take your time, you get good deals, find out where the best deals are, when you got to buy new, and you move from there. So I'm hoping to keep costs down still. We've done it really cheap so far because I had all the parts and the supplies on the shelf. So we're going to keep charging along on it. In the meantime, tell your friends about the channel if you enjoy it, and notify, like, and subscribe. It's not cheap to do these projects. In spite of the fact there's not a lot of money being spent, there's a lot of parts going in, and I want to be able to continue to keep up this stuff. So while you're at it, if you've got a low buck project on the go, why not put it in the comments section? Show us a picture of your project, big, small, V8, 4-cylinder, 3-cylinder, 12-cylinder, doesn't matter. Show us what matters to you. And until tomorrow night or the night after, depending on when we get the repairs finished, that's it from Real Builds. We'll be back real soon.